Hey headphone people, MrAyrit here, and I have a review for you of a really nice headphone today, the ZMF Atticus. Before I get into that, I do want to remind you that I did just launch a Patreon, and if you're interested in checking that out, link down below. The main perk is that I'm giving my patrons first crack at buying any of my gear after I'm done reviewing it, and one of those things will probably be this Atticus. So if you're interested, again, consider that. No obligation. I just wanted to point it out before I get into the review. And this is going to be a positive one. So I've reviewed one other ZMF headphone in the past. That was the Aeolus, which is kind of like maybe like the open brother of the Atticus here. And I really like that headphone. Ultimately, I didn't keep it. But I did think it was a really good performing headphone and thought that it did really well. The Atticus is similar for me in that I do think it's really great. I'm a little bit more tempted to keep this one, but ultimately I just don't know that I'll reach for it all that much, even though I do really enjoy it. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at it. We'll talk about what I like about it, and maybe like why I don't know that I'm gonna keep my hands on it at this point in time. So first thing you'll notice is just the wood on it. Of course, this is a closed back, big wood cups, just like ZMF is known for, big cushy pads, just like ZMF is known for, leather, wood, metal. It all just feels just really good, just so smooth and just enjoyable to touch and use. Now, I'm not sure what kind of wood this one is. I don't think it's definitely not one of the fancier woods. I actually purchased this headphone used, and I purchased it for a pretty good price, so like $500 good. And it did come with leather pads on it that were a little beat up. It didn't come with any packaging or anything like that, so that's why it was a little bit cheaper. On the cheaper side, and you can see that the wood cups on this headphone have been kind of they've got some marks. These things have seen some use. Right now, functionally they're totally fine, and to be perfectly honest, I think they've aged rather gracefully, even with the scuffs and nicks and marks on them. They've got like a story to it, right? And that's what's cool about ZMF headphones, is that they are beautiful, and obviously you want to protect them if you can, but even if they do get a little worn in, it just kind of works for these guys, I think. I don't know. It's like, it's like an old pair of gloves or something like that, where it's just like they have character, and they get more unique as time goes by, and these are a headphone they're built to last, right? Which is another cool thing about ZMF headphones. So just going over kind of the basics here, it's got XLR, mini XLRs, which means, cable options are aplenty. And the one that came with this is like the older ZMF style, which is like a ribbon. And then this one terminates into a 1/4 inch. I thought this cable was fine. I ended up using it mostly with a heart system, just because I had one on hand, and I'm using a lot of 4-pin stuff at this point in time. So build, I don't think I have a whole lot more to add to ZMF build. I mean, it's fantastic. I love it. The headphone is super impressive looking, and it feels just super comfortable. I mean, it's huge, obviously. It's weighty. It's not something that I would want to go extended periods of time using, like all day. I don't know if it's an all-day headphone, really, but definitely for like a couple hours, it's comfortable enough to do that with. It does start to get a little heavy after a while, though, but I mean, it carries its weight pretty well. If you've tried a ZMF headphone before, then you kind of know what you're getting into here, which is, it's comfy, but it's heavy, but it carries that weight reasonably well. Other things to note, pad swapping is a big deal with ZMF headphones. If you weren't aware of that, it can drastically alter the sound signature, so it's something that's fun to play around with. Both these and the Aeolus that I had, I like these velour pads on. I think these are the Velour Universe pads, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that. So I bought these velour pads after I got it, and I like them a lot better with these pads on it than with the leather pads. So my review with the sound is really going to be more about with the velour pads on them. I also find them a little bit more comfortable too. Okay, so how to describe the overall characteristic of this headphone? I think this headphone is wonderful. I think it's technically very proficient. I think that it's not a parlor trick headphone, okay? This is like a headphone that doesn't really try to wow you, but at the same time, like, you leave it impressed all the same just because it does everything so well. And as I was kind of going through, this headphone and listening to it, I just thought, nothing really stood out to me as like really, super impressive or overdone or glaringly bad. It's just competent, as you're listening to it. It's just competent in kind of a subtle and enjoyable way. So, when I was listening to stuff, I was just kind of thinking like, wow, it's got like clarity and detail, but it isn't like sharp or edgy in any way, shape, or form. It's got decent bass response to it, but it's not overblown at all, right? Like it's got an intimacy to it, but it doesn't sound small. It actually sounds pretty open, but you do get like a very intimate experience when you're listening to it. It's clean and clear, and I would say with the velour pads, it's a pretty reference, sound, but it's not boring or anything. So if that kind of, it's got like a richness to it without being bloaty. Like it toes the line of all these things so incredibly well. It just really is a pleasure to listen to, and it's one of those headphones that just really lets you kind of get out of it what you want to get out of it. It doesn't really force a whole lot onto you, and for me, that can be good and bad. I've been using this headphone a lot with my liquid platinum that I upgraded the capacitors for, and that's kind of like my bedside setup at this point in time. And that's just a super smooth but still engaging listen that I've just really been enjoying in the evening times here. I do think that it can, I would say it's like a vocal, mid-centric presentation, if I was going to pick a part of the frequency response that stands out most to me. And I would say on the wrong amping, it can get maybe a little shouty on the upper mids. Specifically with solid state, I found that to be more of the case. I preferred it, and you've probably heard this about ZMF headphones, that they tend to pair really well with tube amps, and that's certainly how I liked it best. So I used it a lot with that liquid platinum, and I also used it a lot with my Feliks Audio Echo Gen 1. But on both those, it's a very smooth, easy, but still really detailed and clear headphone. As I said, the soundstage isn't the largest, but it definitely has soundstage, and it doesn't, even though it isolates really well, it doesn't like feel like you're closed in when you're listening to it. So it sounds very open to me as far as like just the way the presentation is. It doesn't really feel like I'm being isolated, and the music doesn't seem to end like at the cups. It seems to extend beyond that, and has a really decent imaging to it too, I thought personally, to the point where I actually was convinced that I should try it gaming a little bit, because I was like, this is just everything is so easily picked out and just so well done that I thought it might be a good gaming headphone. And I'm not playing anything competitive lately, but I am playing Red Dead 2. Like, I haven't gotten around to that yet, and I've started playing it. So I played a couple hours of Red Dead with this headphone on, and I thought it brought that. The sound, I feel like the sound of that game is pretty immersive and impressive as it is. But definitely with these headphones on, it was phenomenal. Like, all the little, walking through the woods, and you hear all the animals all around, and a train off in the distance, and you can hear other, riders riding by on their horses and things like that. Like, it has such a natural, open sound to it, despite being a closed back headphone. that I just thought it was really great for that, actually. So yeah, I'm really into this headphone. I really like it, but at the same time, at this point, I'm having to start to pick and choose a little bit as far as what do I want to really own and keep here for the long haul. And I've already got a set of Argons. I've already got an Elegia. So I'm just not sure that between those two, like I would say this kind of sits in the middle of those headphones, where the Argon's more of, like a fun, bigger sounding, a little more exciting, and the Elegia is more of a technically proficient headphone. This guy kind of like sits between them and straddles that line really well of not being too reference and boring, but also not being overdone. So it's just, I haven't decided whether I'm keeping it or not. I did get it for a really good deal, and I think all in with the pads, I maybe like $550 into this headphone. So a ZMF for $550 is hard to argue with, honestly. And I haven't had a chance to hear any other ZMF headphones besides this one and the Aeolus, but I've been pretty impressed with both of them. So I definitely think they're worth checking out if you have an opportunity to pick some up. I've never seen any this cheap outside of these, but I have seen some in like the $700 price range, and I definitely think if they're in good condition, that's totally a reasonable price to ask for these headphones. So yeah, I think they're awesome. I think they're really good. If you're looking for a closed back that you can tune a little bit with pads, but is more or less, fairly neutral, but not boring or too sharp or analytical, I think that this is definitely one that you should take a look at, no doubt. Okay, I think that's going to do it for this headphone. So Atticus, very confident headphone. I've got very little to say about it that's negative. So what's been your experience with the Atticus? You had one, you own one, what have you compared it with? Did you decide to keep it, sell it? Where are you at with it? Feel free to drop any of those opinions or thoughts down below. I always appreciate when people add those, and I think it helps out the community quite a bit. I thank you for your time. Don't forget to check out, affiliate links and things like that in the description if you want to support the channel. And again, that Patreon link is down there as well if you want to check that out. So I appreciate you being with me, and I thank you for your time, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.